It's 5:30, time to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand as we say the Pledge of the Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for all that are in attendance this evening. Hopefully this will go fairly well, and we'll be out of here by maybe, 11, 12. Yeah, kidding. Just
Maybe.
kidding. Just kidding. Okay, gentlemen, have you had a chance to look at the agenda? Do you have any questions or concerns about it?
I don't.
No, I don't.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as printed.
A second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And looking at the common consent agenda.
Appointments.
sorry.
Appointments.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's right. Okay, I've got appointments that are right before the common consent agenda. So let's look at the Planning and Zoning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals. I move to appoint Anthony Tony Royce to a first term on the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals. This term will expire on January 1st, 2022. This position will replace Jim Hardy, who has served on the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals for 6 years. And I'm happy to make that motion to appoint Tony on the P&Z board. All in favor signify by saying...
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I'm a little excited here. Yeah, as you can tell. Okay, the electrical board. I move to reappoint Randy Kelly to an 8th term on the electrical board. And can I do all these three and then under one motion approve it? Or do I have to break it up in each name? All three? Okay. Okay. I move to reappoint Rick Howard to a 4th term on the electrical board. And I move to appoint Travis Blankenship to an unexpired term on the electrical board. This term will expire on October 1st, 2020. This position will replace Mike Moore, who has served on the electrical board for over 20 years. I move to reappoint Kenny Evans to an 8th term on the electrical board. And I move to appoint Dennis Royer to an unexpired term on the electrical board. Mr. Royer will serve as a representative of Westar, and his term will expire on April 1st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The tree board. I move to reappoint Josh Umholtz to a 2nd term on the tree board. This term will expire on January 1st, 2020. I move to appoint England Porter to a 1st term on the tree board. This term will expire on January 1st, 2021. I move to appoint Sally Kitterell to a 1st term on the tree board. This term will expire on January 1st, 2021. All right.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Now, moving to the common consent agenda. Gentlemen, have you had a chance to look at the common consent agenda? Any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the common consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, we are now up to item 4, public hearings. Don Cushing. I'm going to open up the public hearing on 208 North 17th Street. Don?
Yeah, this was a structure damaged by fire. We've had no contact since original contact from the owners. It's staff's recommendation that we condemn this structure as dangerous and unsafe.
And is there anyone here in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's my coverage.
Yes, would you mind coming up to the front and to the podium and state your name, please? All righty, thank you.
My name is Christy Campbell, and this is my property. I do understand that there was a fire, there was electrical damage, and it left a pretty big mess. And it was brought to my attention a couple weeks ago. Apparently, the appraisal's office had the wrong owner's name and address, and they were sending the letters to Kathy, the previous owner. I bought this property last year. And I have a picture of the property as of yesterday. We did board up the windows and the back door as well so that it's secured. We changed the locks and believe that the property is secured now. And I do have plans on having some contractors come take a look at it and doing some repairs here in the next few weeks. And so I actually plan to put it back on the market by summertime. So it's on my spring cleaning list, if you will.
Okay, so it's going to go on the market for sale, and have you had a chance to talk to, this is the first time you've had a chance to talk to Don, or?
Yes, me and Don have not discussed this property. I think
Okay.
that maybe he didn't have it in the system correctly. They still had it under Kathy's name. There was an issue concerning the property.
Right here, right here.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
There was an issue concerning the property lines. Apparently, they had put the deed on hold for some reason. I did not get contacted in reference to that. I thought the deed was fine until Kathy hit me up a couple of weeks ago and told me that there was an issue concerning this meeting. So I am here to let you guys know that I am planning to work on this property and have it back up to code. I know the electrical inside will need to pass an inspection before we can turn the electric back on there. And
Ms. Campbell, thanks for coming tonight.
certainly.
Was this your residence or an investment property?
It was an investment property.
Was anyone living in it at the time?
No one is living in it as of right now.
But no one,
The
was
people
someone
that
in
were
it at the
purchasing
time of the
property-
fire?
There was. They were purchasing the property at the time, and they abandoned it after that. I wasn't able to get a hold of them for quite some time. And then a little bit after that, I was in a car accident and suffered from a concussion and had
Ouch.
some issues. So I wasn't able to work on the property for the last quarter of the year. It happened in December, November, but we are definitely planning on getting it done before summertime. So
Okay, great,
that's
great
where I'm at
news.
with that.
For the city, we'd still like to go through with condemnation and work with her on repairs. Part of our concern is the fire was the result of electrical issues.
Right,
And not being, no permits, not being done to code, not being done by licensed personnel, which led to the fire. So that's our concern with it. We would like to make sure
it's
that
done
that
right.
gets done correctly.
The-
I might have Mike, as a matter of fact, I work with Mike Moore. He's a guy that works on my electricity at my
Right here.
personal residence. So I was planning on reaching out to him and, other people that I'm familiar with in reference to the electric. When I went in there, I saw that it's really just that one bedroom has the ceiling that burned out, and you can tell where the electrical fire started. But really, the beams are in good condition. It's really a shame. They had redone the whole bathroom, put new windows in, and I mean, there's hard floors throughout. It has pretty good potential, I believe. And I'm not willing to give it up just yet.
Well, I mean, we'd be happy to work with you on this. The condemnation process doesn't mean that it'll be tore down. It sets a timeline for repairs to be done. It would still be our recommendation that we move forward with that.
Don's easy to work with, and it sounds like you're planning to move pretty quickly anyway, so.
Public comment. And then close.
Next week. And then after that, we'll be able to get the electrical work done, and then we'll replace the ceilings and the walls. There's two beams, joints that have some damage. We'll put some joists on those and make sure that they're, back in order. And of course, we'll make sure that it, meets code. I don't want anyone to be in the home without it being
Sure.
safe, for sure.
understand. All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would have some concerns about this particular address, 208 North 17, that would like to speak? None? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. So, we are to the point where,
Discussion.
discussion, gentlemen, what do you want to, any other questions for Don? I do have one.
Sure.
In particular. It doesn't appear like the damage is real significant in the house. Percentage-wise, you have an idea?
I'd say about 40% when you factor in what you have to do after the fire. There's fire damage, there's smoke damage, there's water damage. So when you factor it in, we're probably about 40% when you factor all of those in there, 40, 50%. Our main concern on that was the electrical. And like I say, we weren't aware that Christy Campbell owned the home. We were just following what was on the county website. So, we looked at it. I was kind of concerned, about the electrical and the work that was being done there and the danger that was being posed there. So,
In some cases of fire, we just adjourn the public hearing. If she's going to be aggressively pursuing renovation, I don't see why we would want to proceed with actual condemnation, but just adjourn the hearing and have her work the schedule out with you. 'Cause,
how much time do you think you could reasonably make some headway on there?
I was thinking within 90 days, by
Okay.
summertime, within the next couple.
We'd be agreeable to adjourn for 60 days and see where we are in 60 days.
well, that would give you time to show Don that you are going to follow through, and then come back to a commission meeting and stay in touch with him, work the schedule out. But then it just save going through issuing a actual condemnation process and then rescinding and everything. Because if you do follow through, then I think we'd just be able to dismiss the public hearing.
That would be great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Don.
So Don, you feel 60 days?
I think 60 days gives us a feel of where we're going and what direction we're going to take on that. So I think 60 days is enough time to do that.
So then, I'd make a motion that we adjourn the public hearing for 60 days.
Second, what date would that be?
That would be
May 23rd. I second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item B, public hearing to consider condemnation of 417 South 6th Street as dangerous and unsafe, and open that up for public. Don, this is a house we've had
talked about a few
several
times.
come
So
up here.
I've talked to Tracy and his wife this week. He's working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. He's talked to contractors, trying to get it set up to repair all the foundation walls around there. I have no doubt that is the direction that they want to move, and that's what they want to do. He's trying to work together to put the finances and get everything put together. I have no problem asking for another 60 days that we adjourn on this. We've posted signs on there that it's not to be habitated. They've bought another place and are living in another place and are working in this as finance and time allows. He says that his work schedule should be a lot lighter in the next 30 days. So,
All right, that's good to hear. The house itself, it had some repairs have been made to stabilize the part of that foundation that was.
yeah, I mean, the rest of the
Is that an
house, we
issue?
really don't see any issues. As a matter of fact, I haven't even gone upstairs or anything. It was the concern of the wall that evening after we had those heavy rains back in August. So, I mean, like I say, easy to work with, but work schedule and trying to put together all of the finances they need to do this have been the only difficulties. And I really don't say they're difficulties. It's a challenge and something we all have to face. Try to figure out how we're going to finance this. So.
Sure.
I think he was here at the last hearing.
He was here at the
only
last
came in
meeting.
late.
his work schedule, he has to get up at four in the morning, and he said if we could discuss this without him here, he'd be agreeable to that. But he was aware of the meeting, just not able to make it.
So you're
All
thinking
right.
60 days on this one, too?
I think 60 days. He's working with his contractor to try to work out schedule and the cost on that. So
Okay. So we're looking at that
that would
being
be
May
that
23rd
same
again?
meeting, May 23rd.
Also. All right, so close the public hearing, and commissioners,
Sounds good.
agreeable? All right, I make a motion that 417 South Sixth Street, public hearing be adjourned for 60 days as the owner diligently pursues repair of the foundation.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C, this is another house we've talked about
Yes.
numerous times.
We
905 West Sycamore Street, public hearing, consider condemnation as dangerous and unsafe.
At this time, it's staff's recommendation that we go ahead with condemnation. We have had no contact from them, I think, since November. Initially, they said they would be in December and January to look and to do. Now we're into March, and we haven't. I think if we were to condemn it, and these, of course, they live in Wyoming. If we were to condemn it, then we could maybe move forward with this, but there's been no progress on the house for several months now, so.
They had corresponded at one.
At one time,
One time.
at one time they did, but we have not heard from them for several months. So.
Okay, and refresh my memory, when they had corresponded with you, what were their initial
Initially,
plans?
they had gone in, and this was full of debris, missing windows. So they've gone in, cleaned out the debris, put in windows. But as you can see, the porch is still the same, the outside is still the same. No repairs have been done in the exterior. We're leaking, ceiling tiles are starting to fall down, water's starting to go inside of the house. Originally, when they had bought the house, they weren't aware that there was a condemnation proceeding happening. So that's why we had adjourned, to try to give them an opportunity to work and to fix the property. It was their intention to be a rental property initially. But there's really been no movement since the cleanup and the windows, and they've not been able to come down or contacted us since the last meeting, last time we discussed this.
And you said that had been, the last contact was September, was that right?
Last contact, I believe, was in October.
October, okay.
And at that time, they were going to come down in November to look at it. Then it was January, and now it's March, and we haven't heard anything from them.
All right. Don?
Like I say, even if it was condemned, we would still be able to work out a timeline with them
Sure.
and work out a schedule to do that.
Okay.
Owner,
Is there anyone here in the audience
the owner,
of this property? Pardon?
the owner.
The owner?
Public.
Oh, okay. Public comment? Okay. Then we'll close the hearing. Gentlemen, what's your preference here?
I think with the lack of contact, that, I think we were agreeable, and I think I would still be agreeable to see the house renovated, but without contact, we don't have much option. That, we have to move forward. If they do, after notification, the house is condemned, they could still have is it 30 days to commence
They have 30
repairs?
days to get with me to announce their intention about whether they want to go forward with repairs or to have it torn down.
So within 30 days of them receiving notice of the condemnation, they could contact Don, still set up a schedule and work. Don
Yeah.
could bring it back to us. Then I think, 9 months they
Yeah.
have by ordinance?
Yeah.
And we're willing to work in that
Yeah.
time period if something's being done, I think. But-
With the housing stock the way that it is, we're more than happy to work with them if they're showing some steady progress. So
But I don't think we can keep coming and just granting extensions and not having any representation from the owner with no correspondence, no phone call, or no one present. So, I would make a motion that we proceed with condemnation of 905 West Sycamore and declare it a dangerous and unsafe structure.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. Item D, public hearing to consider condemnation of 1701 North 10th Street as dangerous and unsafe. Public session is open.
So this one, they had originally submitted their building permit form. However, one of the units has to be converted to an ADA unit. So the architect is now revising and drawings, and so they're moving forward with that. They've received their settlement from the insurance company. I have a copy of the scope of work from the insurance company. We are moving forward with it, but the Department of Agriculture's made them change their drawings a little bit for one of the units to make it ADA accessible, which is fine with us. So we're happy with progress being made. Last time we had talked, we had the government shutdown, and it was kind of sitting on somebody's desk. Government's now been funded and brought to their attention that they want to make changes in one of the units. So we're just waiting for them to submit to us those changes so we can have them move forward. And if you've seen, they've cleaned up, and somehow some material got delivered there for the work to start trusses, I believe. Somebody ordered trusses, and they're sitting outside, so
So you're suggesting we look at this again on June 27th?
I would say that I would say if we go 60 days like we've done with the other two,
Okay.
this evening I'm sure we'll be in the middle of repairs.
So May 23rd again?
Yeah, May 23rd.
Okay, 60 days. Any comments from the public? Okay, the public hearing is closed. We're going to move this to 60 days, which will make that also May the 23rd.
Or is that what you wanted, Don? 60
Yes.
days or
60 days.
the
60
June
days.
27th date that you would recommend it early?
60 days, because I think within 60 days we may be even talking about them nearing completion on this.
Okay. Okay, so do I have a motion?
I move to adjourn the public hearing for 1701 North 10th Street to May 23rd, 2019 at 5:30 PM.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All
Thanks,
right,
Don.
Thank you, Don. Items for commission action. A, consider a request for a conditional use permits for microbreweries, bottling and canning soft drinks and carbonated waters, and beer, wine, and alcoholic beverages, wholesale establishment in a C3 district at 223-225 West Main Street. Okay. All right, sir. And you are?
My name is Robert Box. I'm one of the owners of Indie Brew Works here in town. So me and my wife are the owners. I wanted to come and introduce myself and kind of let the community know. And also I want to start off by saying through this how grateful we are to be in town and how great the process has been so far getting established here in town. Construction is going really well. We've already made a big progress on that building. It's already starting to look like it's going to look. But we originally moved from Texas. Me and my wife and my 2-year-old son moved up here from Texas, and it's been an awesome experience just dealing with people here in town, as far as people at the bank, the construction people, the architects, the people at the city. So we're really excited to get going. We're really excited to have something that we feel like is going to add value to the town, that's going to add value to the downtown, that'll help bring people in. When I got bit by the beer bug, we were living in Raleigh, North Carolina originally, and breweries are real popular out there, and they're real focused on local and locally made goods, and I thought it was the coolest thing because we would go to breweries on the weekends, and we would be sitting in a building that was 100 years old that somebody had invested in some part of an industrial part of the town, and there's just every demographic you can imagine from that town sitting in that brewery. I mean, all age ranges, college kids, there's single people, there's married couples, there's grandparents there. I mean, it was just such a cool experience to feel like you're in kind of this little microcosm of the community. And so since then, we've had the beer bug to get a brewery going. My head brewer, Tim Hardy, who graduated from the World Beer Academy in Munich, Germany, he's also from Lubbock, Texas with me, and he'll be moving up here in May. So he came and saw the site last 2 weeks ago, and he's as excited as I've ever seen him be about this process. So we're super excited. If you have any questions for me or questions about the process or anything, I'd be more than happy. I can talk about the brewery and beer all day. So
You don't happen to have any samples with you?
we
by
don't.
chance? See me after the meeting. We'll talk. Okay. Okay. Could probably use one right now. All right. Thank you.
So is somebody going to explain exactly what the conditional use permit involves?
The conditional use permit is to allow this use in the C3 Central Business District. You may remember that the code was amended, the permitted and conditional use table, to allow these uses. And so it was amended, and then we're following the process for them to go through and apply for the conditional use. They've went through the Planning Commission and received approval unanimously. And so now the final step is to come to you guys and seek your approval. And then a resolution will be signed, and then they will be in business.
Normally, isn't the conditional use permit addressed and granted prior to start of construction? It's kind of a gamble.
Well, it's based on the use, so these particular
Yeah.
items they cannot do until that is approved. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of on them if they want to
Yeah.
take that risk, but they haven't, started yet, so
Right.
they're not in violation.
Just a lot of money at stake.
And we've
Yeah.
built out the space. None of the equipment's here yet, and I mean we've basically reinforced a lot of the walls that are stuff that was falling down. We've torn out a lot of the old stuff, so that's right now it's just a big empty room. So that's kind of where we're at.
Mr. Mayor, I might point out what's, I think, obvious to you gentlemen, that I own stock in this enterprise. They needed investors to make it work in the city, and my wife and I were one of those investors. I've already talked to the city attorney, and he said that I could not vote on this if we were awarding a contract to the brewery, but I certainly can vote on this. Is that correct, Jeff? Am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, the actual owner of the building is Morrison Builders, Inc. The brewery doesn't own the building, they're merely a tenant, and this is a zoning issue. The state statute on ethics prohibits participating in a contract if you own a substantial interest, which he does, but the city's not entering into a contract, so technically it doesn't violate any ethics rules.
Just wanted to
Okay.
bring
All right,
that up
thank you. Thank
again.
you. Leonard?
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving conditional use permits for microbreweries, bottling and canning soft drinks and carbonated waters, and beer, wine, and alcoholic beverages, wholesale establishment in the C3 district at 223, 225 West Main Street, as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item B, consider authorizing an agreement with Morrison Builders, Inc. for the temporary use of the city's right-of-way adjoining their buildings at 223 West Main Street. Yes, sir.
How are
And you
you?
must be Mr. Morrison.
I'm Steve Morrison, yes. As you can see on the diagram on the left-hand side, we're asking for a patio to come out the left side of the door. Yeah. And that property in the last 70 years has become the city of Independence. So we're asking for a temporary wooden patio to be built there. The other thing that we're asking for is in the very south part of the building to grant back a way to, lost it, there it is, to enter into the apartments. So that property currently is owned, or is, the building comes right up to I guess the building is the edge of the property. So we would need that additional 8 to 9 feet there to the city sidewalk in order to be able to enter into the apartments, and then also provide a patio for outdoor seating for the brewery.
Part of it was, let's see, weren't you going to attach
Oh, yes, sir.
condensers?
Yeah, they didn't show that. There's no other location on the property because it's so tight. So between those two entrance into the apartments on the south and the outdoor patio, would put up a privacy fence and set a glycol condenser and the condenser for the air conditioner, because there's no other place to put that on the property.
They're going to be ground mounted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. When I read on the wall, that's where I was getting confused with attaching a bracket to put them on the building, but then the screen.
It's just
Fencing it.
yeah, it'd be a screen
So-
wall in front of it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Steve, the patio, is that over the existing opening down to the basement?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to span that?
We're going to span that, and I guess the city owns that opening to the basement. I'm not for sure.
We don't want it.
It's in need of repair.
Then you own it.
They don't. Yeah, that would go. That would be 8 to 9 feet coming out from over that entrance on the west wall there.
And then, as I understood, you're looking at a walkway, concrete steps and a walkway at the southwest brownstone entrance to the staircase for apartments, and that sidewalk would extend south,
Yes, sir.
and
To
it
the
would
prop-
it would connect across the alley to the existing sidewalk
Yes, sir.
that
It's already
goes
in
further
existing.
south
Yes.
to 9th Street. Is that right?
Yes, sir. They call it the brownstone entrance because that's the look we want to have on the outside, to give it a New York brownstone, Philadelphia brownstone type look entering into the apartments.
Is the hatched area in front of the steps, is that the two space for loading and unloading? On the left-hand drawing,
To designate those,
well, I
yes,
guess
sir.
it's my left hand.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Be
the
on the west
hatched
side of
area.
the building,
Right.
Mr. Leonard. Yes.
is that the hatched area you're
I
calling the
think
two
that's
space?
what y'all drew out,
Okay.
Leonard. Yes.
So that's like the loading zone we have at Sears for people to
Mm-hmm.
pull up and carry their stuff up to their apartment or whatever.
You
Yeah.
can see on the rendering, there's a little awning over the stair. And
I didn't see that, but
yeah,
I believe you.
there you go.
Oh, there you go. I see it now, yeah.
There's the deck, the privacy fence, condensers, and then the awning entrance.
So your request on the parking spaces, you're just asking to eliminate two that are already there?
I don't think anything's,
Okay.
if you go back to Mr. Leonard, if we'll go back to all that is there currently is a sidewalk that runs down which would be the east side of 9th Street. John, because of the ADA situation on that corner, this is a rendering that shows the ADA coming across 9th Street in, and that would be the only way you could get to elevation to proper elevation to get up to the sidewalk. So that's the rendering for that. Currently, there is parallel parking to that side of the
Okay.
street. And
Okay.
we were looking to take those two spots just for couples or
Okay.
people with children so they could unload their stuff and then
Right.
find their place to park.
So you're just requesting an area that's approximately 2 spaces? since they're not-
Approximately
yeah,
two
okay.
spaces. Yes, sir.
Okay. Will that also be used for unloading supplies to the brewery, or where's your service entrance on it?
It's cut off with the top of the screen, but there is a service entrance into the back of the, to the brewery. They will have the alleyway coming into a loading dock in the back.
So,
South edge of that pavement is the property line. 'cause
Yes,
it's
sir.
out of the building right behind it.
Well, there's a fence there, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can kind of see what it is. You go
yeah, the back of the building is the south property line
to. No,
too?
there's actually, see that drive that goes east and west there, the south edge of it.
Okay.
Where there's a fence. If you go by now, there's a fence there. You can see
Yeah.
where
But it's confusing looking at the site to see with the construction fence and the property line. So that's not a walkway, that's actually your drive
That's
for delivery?
That's
Okay.
10, we have 10 feet on the back of the building to the
Okay.
property line.
that's really why there's no room to put equipment back there.
Right,
because
right,
got a lot going on.
Yeah. well, that's what, I wasn't sure if that was a drive or just a wide sidewalk, and then I'm thinking, where are you gonna unload
Yeah.
if 2 spaces would really be big enough to designate for your loading, if you're gonna unload trucks for supplies to the brewery on the street, maybe
No.
that needed to extend a little farther south.
Gentlemen, anything else?
Not for me.
All right,
No, I
good.
don't have any.
I'm good. All right, Mr. Morrison, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, do I have a motion on item B?
I move to authorize an agreement with Morrison Builders Incorporated for the temporary use of the city's right-of-way adjoining their property at 223 West Main Street.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C, consider replacement of sidewalk on the south side of the 200 block of West Main Street for ADA compliance.
Mayor, Mr. Morrison, I don't know if you want to join me too. These people have been great to work with, a great addition to our community, and Mr. Morrison is willing to provide the labor if we provide the materials. I can let him talk, or Sean Turner can also kind of help us here. Basically, we've had to move out the intersection because of the cross slope to get the ramp to work at that, and make that all ADA compliant. We have a van and a vehicle ADA stall with the walkway up to the front and getting into the building. Kind of 2 parts here. We'll take this first part. If you have some questions for Mr. Morrison on the entrance here, and then there's kind of a second part for the rest of the block. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add or answer questions as far as what we're doing here.
The cross slope going into the entrance of the building is on city property and city sidewalks. So it does not meet ADA standards, and I know that it's a preference. It is our desire to have complete ADA compliance going into the brewery. So in order to be able to have the cross slope to enter into the building, we have to elevate that sidewalk. John, was it
I think the
5?
elevation difference to get in the building ends up being nearly 12 inches.
Yeah, so that, but if you look at that, I'm one that goes out and studies what's been done in the past and how things are done. It appears to me that the city had refinished the sidewalks coming down to the edge of our building, and at that point, there was nothing, no ADA, no new sidewalks. I'm not sure when you guys did that, but none of that was brought up to the elevation, even for the taxidermist that was there or for the lady that was cutting, that had the barber shop there. So none of that was brought up to ADA. So we asked Mr. Heckman to give us an ADA compliant drawing. Well, when you do bring the sidewalks up, in order to bring the cross slope to ADA compliant across 9th Street, you have to extend a little median out into 9th Street. And you can see that to the very far right side of this. And in order to be able to cross 9th Street to that, you've got to be able to have that distance in order to have that cross slope. And I can't tell what that footage is there, but that extends it out. Can you? Probably 15 feet or so, 14, 15 feet, in order to be able to come across there. That would also put the coming across Main Street at that corner of 9th and Main from the north. That would also have ADA compliance crossing there. And then there, we thought that a van wheel to ADA designated spots on Main Street would be a desirable thing. So we added those in front of the building for the van accessibility and the van slots as well. Walked my dog down to the end of, went down 9th Street to the next block down, and I noticed that that has been brought into ADA compliant on that end of the block. I don't know, I'm sure you guys were aware of that. Then if you go back east, that corner had not been finished out. But that, I think, I mean, just from me looking, and I'm not a professional on this, but I think if we bring this corner in and the caddy corner, opposite corners there into compliant, that whole block could become an ADA compliant block. Am I right on that?
Going back to the east.
Going back to the east,
Nice
To
try.
the Booth Hotel, it's not compliant.
it's not compliant on that end?
No, you'll go to the set.
Okay, so they worked on it and didn't bring it into compliance. Okay.
The story of our lives.
I noticed later in the agenda, we're talking about some street projects. I think we kind of have, well, I see two issues: ADA accessibility into your building, and then the city's responsibility for ADA compliance. Entrance into the building is a requirement of the building owner. Ours is the accessible route with the ADA parking that's indicated on the street. The only way that will be accessible and allowable by ADA, it's that the parking of the street be modified also. Just putting a ramp in that it complies with ADA will not qualify as ADA parking, because the parking space, the slopes of the area also have to comply. With the work that's being shown as a project for improvements on Main Street, I think it would be better to look at the total picture when we do full base replacement and we're adjusting the curb and gutter elevation. Then we can address the parking and also deal with some of the cross slope issues.
Yeah, my question on this, and because this is relatively all new to me, that with the projects that we're looking at, KDOT, My question was if we would go into this project and make these improvements here, and then we come back in 2021 and do a full base replacement from 10th to 8th on Main Street, then would we be doing some of this work, coming back later and making an improvement, which we would need to, at that point, need to bring everything into ADA compliance? Would we be doing some work that we would be tearing out or changing down the road? Would this be better to incorporate that in that KDOT project that we're going to look at here a little bit later? Sean?
Well, you certainly can. The elevations that really can't change appreciably is the gutter line. So that's a natural break point. We pretty much have to match the flow line of the gutter in both projects. So it's kind of a natural break line. You could improve the sidewalks there. All that can remain even if we do the KDOT project. And then in the KDOT project, fix the slope of the road to be the 2% max in the areas of the parking. So it's kind of a natural break point right at the gutter lines, to answer your question.
Okay.
But to change the parking area, then you're going to require to modify the street if you set the gutter. So, there's other issues that, the problem I see is we're looking at one piece that's going to tie us into a future project. You haven't surveyed, you haven't set elevations, you haven't set grade on any of the road work. We're looking at one corner, and we're going to set standards for that without knowing how everything else fits in. So, we're basically boxing ourselves in. It would be wiser to look at addressing access into the building separate, and then deal with the actual ADA issues through the intersection with the street project, where we're looking at the whole block and cross the cross slopes in the roadway to get that accomplished. 'Cause right now, if we put the curb in, we still have a non-compliant parking area. We're still subject. Now we put the curb in, the curb ramp. Now we're subject to complaint and liability for that parking space not complying. If we leave the gutter as it is, and curb and gutter and no ramp, then we have no liability for a complaint, and no one can issue a complaint to the city on that parking space. But by putting the ramps into a non-compliant parking area, we become now non-compliant.
So are you asking me to be compliant?
So you have to be compliant because you own the building, but you don't have to be compliant on the parking because that's our responsibility.
Is the sidewalk your responsibility also?
The sidewalk in offsets, when we designate a accessible route, it has to, but there's no accessible route there because there's no ADA parking. Those were established prior to 92, so the ADA specifies that streets that are new or altered, or sidewalks that are altered after 92 have to comply. So that section directly in front doesn't have to comply.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like I said, it's a learning process for me every time I sit in this chair. Leonard, thank you for the information.
Where we're applying for a grant to deal with the streets, and on your proposal, or our proposal to KDOT, we show redoing those ramps. That's the time to handle the curb cuts and look at the parking so that we can maintain the flow and make spaces that accommodate.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just wondering how you get into the building on the sidewalks, and then we turn right around in 2 years from now and we redo that, is that correct?
Well, what would have to be done would be the ramp like you've got shown has to be constructed to get you into the building. And then the elevations have to be set where you tie in to be compatible, or you set the grade on what we have to match with our work of the sidewalk in the next phase. Because access into the building is required by the building owner. It's not an obligation to the city.
No, I understand that, but since 1992, is that correct, when the ADA,
Right.
if the building was existing and had no, just like the sidewalks were existing, then it would not have to be moved to ADA, correct?
No, because you're remodeling the building. When you remodel the building, then it has to come into compliance.
Okay. So if the city comes in 2 years, is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
So you're going to come in 2 years, and then it's going to be my responsibility at that time to redo what I've done?
No, yours would remain, and then the city would connect to your existing structure. Just,
Has that study been done by the city? Any engineering work?
I don't believe we have. We just got the application going in to KDOT, but, that's what we would need to look at, working with you to set that up so it's not redone later.
Yeah. So if that changes, can we, I don't know, when it,
Well, if we have a ramp and not a step, it can be blended in later. I gotta disagree though, if just the fact that we haven't repaired that corner. If I'm a citizen and I can't get up on that curb, I can sue the city. By not taking care of it, doesn't save the city, I don't believe at all, any responsibility. A person can sue the city at any intersection that's not accessible.
No,
That's how we got into all that.
no. We're only required to provide curb ramps at any street or sidewalk or roadway that is new or been altered. So if the sidewalk has not been altered, then we do not have to comply or provide ramps at those locations.
So a person can't
Yeah,
make a complaint on an existing curb somewhere?
you can make a complaint, but you don't have to respond to the complaint because it doesn't violate the ADA. The ADA says that a ramp is only required where a street has been altered or is new. So if there's a curb at an existing brick street, a complaint can be filed, but no action is required because it doesn't violate ADA.
I'm from Arkansas, sometimes you have to confuse, forgive me for not knowing. But you currently have, what do you call those?
There are 2 curb ramps there,
Yes,
and if a complaint was filed on those 2 ramps, we could cut the ramps out and redo them into compliance. We wouldn't have to do the whole area.
so with those, what do you call them? I can't even remember what those are called. Those rubber, so
The
for
technical-
ADA?
Right.
If those are there, would that not give us an assumption that it is ADA compliant?
No, the ADA compliance is based upon actually the way it was constructed, the slopes and the widths and,
Yes, sir, I'm aware of that.
yeah, because some things have been built that haven't been compliant. There are ramps that don't comply. But, in this case where we're looking at redoing the whole intersection for the city, it would be better to tie it in all together at one step instead of doing part now, and definitely the handicap parking. There's no way it would comply at this time, and, you know, we don't.
Well, my request then would be that I wait until the city, if it's in a 2-year process, that we get as close as we can to, and not go out there and go from one end of the building and put in a ramp that's at ADA grade, that I would request that we just put in a cross slope that would be accessible to the front and not go from one end of the building until the city has their engineering work or put together, so we would know what needs to be done in the future. I don't know how we do that.
And that's your decision, because the building is yours, and compliance to the ADA is yours, and, you know, you would have to work that out with the authorities. So
Don's still here. Okay, I'm going to ask you to pull up your memory. Is there, in our permit set, is there, what's the ADA compliance to the building showing on the permit, or on our permit application? Do you remember? Coming into the building, did we show an ADA compliant on that? On the permit set? But we didn't cross.
No, I mean,
We didn't go from.
right away beyond what
No.
we needed to get into the building.
Okay.
I mean, we can get into the building.
Okay.
So the slope up to the door now, well, you said it's like a foot elevation change, I
Well,
believe.
if you fix your cross slopes and things, it increases it, so,
Gotcha.
yeah. It
So it's
won't be
something-
that much, yeah.
because
So-
some of the ramp could be reduced if the cross slope is modified too. So that's, you know, we're just looking at things as they are, not as what they could be.
Sure.
So that's why we need to look at the total picture of the whole block and what we're going to do with full base replacement. If the flow elevation depends what that is, you know, we could add a drop inlet or modify it a little bit and maybe reduce the cross slope on the sidewalk, which could also then reduce the amount of ramp required. So that's what, you know, I say we're just looking at one piece. We're not taking time to look at the whole thing to see what the best solution for everyone would be. That if you can kind of see what I'm
Absolutely,
saying.
absolutely, and agree with you. I'm just saying that if I go from east to west in order to be totally ADA compliant, I'm going to take up almost half your sidewalk.
Yeah,
And then that, the way they've got this drawn here, that would also have to have railing on it, which that would, you know, so I think that proposes a bigger problem.
yeah. I think where we're looking at the street, and we are going to have to do something with the street between 10th and 9th. It continues to deteriorate. We're going to have to do something to address that issue, and it continues up to 8th Street. So with not seeing that whole section of what that whole 2-block could do or would do, it kind of, you know, once you put the ramp in, everything gets tied into that instead of, well, we could really come up with a shorter ramp, less sidewalk, or just how we could work out the issues. Because still, from the parking space that you've got shown, then we've got an obligation for accessible route from that aisle to the buildings along the street. So we don't know what that's going to be grade-wise, cross-slope-wise, how we could get a compliant accessible route from the parking spaces to your ramp. Once it's established now, without looking at all that at one time. we could box ourselves into more problem.
That's what I'm, yeah.
We've got accessible parking spaces all over town that do not meet ADA.
You're,
Identified as such.
you're correct, and that was what I brought up when we did it.
Exactly what it is. Yep.
But we don't want to build more non-compliant spaces to continue the problem. And particularly,
Maybe work with Sean a little bit and see.
particularly where we're looking at a road project in 2 years that could solve everything.
Yeah, I agree, and don't want to talk about architects, but but that is a rendering that would give the correct slope, but that when it's out there in real life and we're pouring concrete, you may take up the 3/4 of that sidewalk to even be able to get into that building to ADA standards. And so my question is, for you guys, do we give it accessible as close as we can to the cross slope current to get into the building? And then I would like to have the drawings of what you guys, the civil drawings of that, and then I'll know where it's got to be. But
And we're a ways from having that information available to you.
okay,
But it's kind of, we have to work them together. We're obligated to comply with ADA. You're obligated to comply with ADA. And we need to work together that we can solve both of our problems. And not one of us go ahead of the other.
yeah, and I don't want to. That's what I'm
No.
saying. I don't want to run ahead of you because that's not good for anybody.
My recommendation is we wait and tie this work in with our street and road project.
Mr. Mayor, I had a outstanding understanding of this entire subject when the meeting started. Now I don't have a clue what's going on. So the sidewalk in front of this building that these people are investing more than $500,000 into is in very bad shape. So I thought it was a generous offer for them to provide the labor to get the sidewalk repaired where it's not so lumpy and it's clearly not been touched in many decades. But now I understand that we can't really do that. We can't bring it into ADA compliance unless we also do the street at the same time.
You can repair the sidewalk within the curbs and within the area there excluding the ramps. The area in front of the building, if you want to remove it and replace it, that can be done.
Okay, right now we're just talking about the Main Street sidewalk, correct?
Right.
So the
And
Ninth
you
Street
can do
sidewalk,
9th Street sidewalk,
we're good with that.
yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I
Might
understand.
actually do- I mean, sitting here now, I think the thing to do is probably look at moving those around to the other side. 9th Street, I think there's a lot less flow.
Moving those ADA parking
ADA
spaces.
parking spot, yeah. I just moved mine out. We can look at that. I don't want to get hung up on that part, because that curb set, the gutter line set, like Leonard says, we can so from there up to the building, correct.
I think what Mr. Leonard's saying.
And we can get customers into the building another way, still ADA compliant.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it going to look like the bakery? Is there going to be a ramp with a
yeah, it
railing?
won't be that.
Okay, won't be that ugly? Thanks a lot. I hear you.
But good, but bad, and good at all.
Okay.
With the sidewalk you're putting on 9th Street, are you putting new curb and gutter there or just new curb?
It's totally deteriorated. It was poured on top of brick pavers,
The curb,
the curb.
yeah.
So it's
Not much curb there.
There's no curb there.
So you're going to use a turn-down edge on the sidewalk along
Yes.
9th Street?
Yes.
So you could put an ADA accessible point. If there is a parking area that complies with the slopes, you could create and just lower your sidewalk.
Yeah,
And
we can do it on that.
yeah,
You could do it on that side, and you could
I
access
That'd
it.
be-
stay off of Main
That'd be the simplest
and, yeah,
solution.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about the, even if you don't come out with the peninsula there, what if you go ahead and strap that? It's not strapped now with this current diagonal parking in it.
On 9th Street?
Yes, sir.
Did you say stripe it? Is that what you said?
Striped?
Stripes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I know you're from Arkansas,
Striping.
but I was thinking,
Like,
I think you said strap it. I wasn't
That's
sure
what
what
I
that
said.
was.
Strap too.
My mom was from the South. I understood exactly what you were talking about.
It's that degree from Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that would, I mean, clean it up. I would agree with that. I mean, my thought is because the city's going to come in and bring water to the building, so they're going to cut through the sidewalk on the east side anyway.
Wait, on the east side?
The east,
The west
West
side.
side.
no, east side, they're coming through.
From the front off of Main. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's got to be cut. I mean, move forward as proposed as is, and then take out the ADA part of it. Clean it up, because it's pretty bad shape. I mean, not trying to.
Yeah, no,
So I think what you're asking, Steve, is if
we
we can do the front sidewalk. I think he's asking Leonard, just do the sidewalk that's there, redo it. Is that what you're asking? Take
I'm
it
just
out.
saying, take the ADA compliant.
Take the
take it
stalls
out.
out, so we're not worried about the street. And can we redo the sidewalk in front and make it an ADA compliant?
No, you can't make it ADA compliant.
No, you don't have. The sidewalk can be removed and maintained. And at the professional building years ago, before the streetscape, Cy Green had to replace a section because of trip hazards there. Then he did all that out of his own pocket. Then it came back with the streetscape, and the city contributed
Yeah.
to that.
75-25, yeah.
So, I think what you're saying is you want to replace the concrete in front of the building and leave the curb and gutter along Main Street and the existing curb ramps in, and then put the sidewalk new on 9th Street and move your parking around the corner on 9th Street and provide
Put that
striping.
diagonal striping on the ninth, yes. Striping. On 9th Street, and designate two parking spots
Yeah.
for loading and unloading. Yes. I think that's,
Yeah,
with
I
what
think-
you guys got to do, with what the city has to do over a much bigger scope, I totally understand that, totally.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think to make sure we're all on the same page, if you want to revise the drawing or a written proposal like you're talking, so we can make sure we're all on the same page, and then,
I think that's wise,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Guys, looking at our
I'm not sure. that-
grant applications, there's quite a bit of work, and it seemed like there's a lot of information we don't have to guarantee we're working together and not boxing each other in. So the least amount of work we can do at this time, but still go forward, particularly on 9th Street, that's going to be pretty straightforward there, the best would be.
Robert, how many customers are you expecting your first month?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think we could be in the thousands at first.
with off-street parking not required in the central business district, you know, the requirement to address.
There'll be parking everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
And walking across that.
right.
I would say that, John, do you think Sean could get something drawn
Yeah,
up
we
to
can
label
just
in 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
And
He's asking if he, Leonard, if he, or Mayor, if he can come back in 2 weeks with a drawing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that,
that would be fine. We'll make sure we're all on the same page and we're all talking about the same thing and make the drawings of what we talked about proposing tonight.
well, I'm from Arkansas, and they say good fences make good neighbors. So if you get everything out and get it out where you can see it,
Yeah.
I think everybody will know exactly what's going on, and there's no,
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
Let's do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, we're all on the
Thank
same
you.
page, no misunderstandings, and we know what
Yeah.
each of us are gonna do.
And do you see any problem with maybe even striping across the street on Ninth in front of Walgreens there? Because, I mean, that could be, I think that street's wide enough.
I think that's a great idea.
Because I don't think there's any, striping there. Yeah.
No. There
And
is,
then, probably Walgreens will be a nice overflow. People can go from the brewery to Walgreens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or the funeral home,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Thank
know,
you for your
they
time,
don't do
and I
business after
apologize
hours.
that I've taken so long.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks for your investment, Steve.
Okay. So we'll see you gentlemen, the next meeting, 2 weeks from now. Okay? So do I have to do anything in particular with that? Okay. Okay. Next, we're looking at, D. Consider bids received for the 1916 City Hall renovation, Phase 1. Vance, how are you?
Yes, good. Thank you for having me back. We're excited to be here to talk about the results for the bid of Phase 1 for the Historic City Hall. We did receive three bidders were involved in the process. As we prepared the package, we broke the project into a base bid amount. We included then 5 add alternates and 3 deduct alternates, and we do that in order to make sure that we have a viable project, making sure that whatever money that you have available for the project, we can find something that works within that scope. We had estimated $1.2 million for the scope of work. On the base bids, we had 3 bidders. Hofer and Hofer was a low. They were at $969,000. We also asked the bidders to describe the number of days to do the work, and you see that in the column off to the right. The base bid amounts for the 3 contractors are there. You can see that all 3 of the base bids fell within our original estimate. And then when you start looking at add alternates, we need to see where they fall into as well. And so the numbers that we have below include the base bid plus alternates 1, 2, 3, and 5. And the reason no number is the reason add alternate number 1 isn't added into the totals here is none of the 3 bidders provided an add for that particular scope of work.
For number 4.
For number 4.
four.
Yeah, did I say 5? Yeah,
Yeah.
so for number
Number
4. So when you look at Hofer and Hofer, to break down their bid, $969,000 with 283 days to accomplish the work. Add alternate number 1, yeah, so Kelly, stay with that sheet, yeah. Add alternate number 1 was to include full repointing. So our base bid was only to take care of deteriorated or open joints. And what that meant is you would have had a mixture of new joints and old mortar still in the building. So this was an increase in quality to be able to accomplish that work. You can see that Hofer and Hofer included additional 90 days to potentially account for that work. Alternate number 2 is called lead T-caps, and what those are is when you have what we call skyward facing mortar joints. So you have a coping stone that's flat, that's open to the sky. When you put sealant in that joint, the life of a sealant joint is much less than a mortar joint, but a mortar joint on a skyward facing joint isn't good because over time it's going to leak. And that lead T-cap, if we add that, improves the life of the sealant joint. So that was another increase in quality for $17,850 potentially adds another 30 days. Alternate number 3 was actually a big one, and this was one that worried us a little bit because as we investigated the building, you have steel lintels that are under the pieces of stone that are above each window. And there's a lot of deterioration there. And so we bid that as a separate item so that we could see what those costs would be. And you can see it's $39,350 to replace and repair the steel lintels, and only adds about 14 days. So we were actually very pleased with the number that came in on that particular ad alternate. Alternate 4, the one that I mentioned we didn't receive any bids on, was to go from an aluminum window, a commercial aluminum window, which is in our base bid, to looking at an aluminum clad wood window. Outside would be aluminum, inside would look wood, which is more compatible with historic building. Since we didn't receive any bids, that's okay. Thermally broken insulated commercial aluminum window is a very good window for any commercial or institutional building like this. Alternate 5 included some regoliths up in the roof flashing to give us a higher quality finish of the roofing system, added a very little bit. So we are recommending to the city that you accept the base bid, Hofer and Hofer's base bid, plus alternate 1, 2, 3, and 5. And that totals of $1,105,400 is still below our estimate of $1,222,971. We then down below are showing the deduct alternates, and what those deduct alternates represent. Alternate number 6, we have an existing skylight that needed replacement. That's in the base bid. If we found that our base bids fell over our estimate, more than the money that you had, then you could remove that skylight and look at capping it on a temporary basis and potentially looking at doing the skylight as part of the interior.
Is that the skylight, or is that the interior air shaft that had a skylight on it?
That is in air shaft, yes.
Okay, so we got the main skylight on second floor,
yes,
going back, but this is that air shaft.
Right, and your base bid includes both new capped skylights on both of those. There's an original skylight that's open to the public area, and then as what the commissioner is describing is there's an air shaft that also allows light into small bathrooms as well as ventilation is what it was designed for. So there wasn't much savings by pulling out that little skylight. So we recommend not accepting alternate 6. Alternate 7 looked at changing the base bid. The base bid is a commercial aluminum, thermally broken insulated window unit that is operable. So you can open the bottom sash and you can have air flow in. In many commercial and institutional buildings, clients prefer not to have operable windows for security reasons, for control of the HVAC system. So we did include a deduct alternate because fixed windows are typically less. And so alternate 7 reflects a potential savings of $27,500. And in our letter to the commission, we said this one is probably worth discussing because it really comes down to you as the owner of the facility and what your preference is. It's not a reduction in quality. It's just a change in how that window functions. And so we haven't made a recommendation on whether you accept it or not. And then alternate 8 is a reduction in quality where we're going from a modified bitumen roofing system, which is a longer lasting roofing system, down to a TPO roof. And we did that in case, again, the budget wouldn't allow us to pick up the higher quality roof. So similar to alternate 6 that we're not recommending, we're also not recommending alternate 8. So the base bid included the higher quality, longer lasting, more durable roof. The base bid included that. Okay. So it really does come down to alternate 7, whether you as owners and occupants of the building, whether an operable window or a fixed window really meets your needs.
With alternate 6, looking at the use of the space, how would a skylight over that interior shaft be beneficial?
So this is one of those issues where if we knew exactly what the interior layout of the space was going to be, then we could tell you the value of allowing natural light back in. And so that is one of the reasons why we did the alternate. The skylight is an historic skylight. In the tax credit application, we've noted that it's there, that it's deteriorated, that it's leaking. Repair of that skylight would exceed the value of it. So we are proposing that you still allow natural light to come in, because depending on the layout that we end up with, that could be a reasonable, a good feature. From an historic preservation standpoint, the State Historic Preservation Office, their standards really do suggest that if you have a skylight, you keep the skylight. And so that is why the base bid included a replacement.
So currently it goes from first floor or roof to the first floor.
To the first floor, correct.
So you feel that in interior renovation, it would be valuable in the renovation of the second story to have an additional skylight in that space?
Potentially, certainly would, yes.
If that's basing that you remove the shaft?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And that is, this is one of those items that, because we haven't been able to do the layout of the interior, if you'd like to accept that deduct alternate, you certainly can, and then we would deal with it as part of the interior renovation. The price that you're seeing is a reasonable deduct, so I don't see any problems with that. This does include temporarily capping that shaft, is what's in alternate 6.
Okay, you said temporarily?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way we've drawn it is more of a temporary.
So if we accept that alternate, then we're going to need to modify the cap to a permanent cap, so
Yes.
we're not going to gain the full 6,500.
You will not.
It could, because a permanent cap could be 1,500, 2,000.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
Pay me now or pay me later, kind of?
yeah, is it, if you take 2,000, are we really saving?
Yeah. Our point of view was
Yeah.
it didn't look like it was
Yeah.
worth the accepting the deduct. Yeah.
Yeah, and the potential to add some natural light, if the layout becomes some interior spaces, then it does provide some benefit for natural lighting back in an area.
Correct.
Okay.
Vince, I saw in your a letter that you were also surprised by the timeline.
Yes,
That
so
seemed like nine and a half months to do this amount of work seems
It is
crazy.
And so we reached out to Hofer and Hofer to make sure we understood what they were looking at and why. There are a couple of things that influence the length of time. One is there's a scope of work that has to occur before they can actually start a lot of their work, and that's the abatement work. But they have to be under contract. They may have to do removal of carpeting and other things. So that work has to be coordinated. And so they were conservative in how much time that might take. And then as you look at including ad alternates, because a contractor never knows which alternate you might accept, they have to be conservative in what might be added. So we asked them, is there an opportunity, if the commission agrees to move forward with signing a contract, is there an opportunity for us to sit down with them and see if things could be looked at? Sequencing of the work, their preference is to do the masonry restoration
before the new windows go in, so there's not damage to the windows. And so if you do all the masonry work and then come back and do all your windows, you can see that that's a longer period of time. Sequentially, they could potentially do masonry on one facade, start the masonry on the other, and come back and do the windows. So they feel like they are certainly open to coming back and talking with us. And once we know the length of time the abatement contractor is going to need, that we can probably shorten this. Yeah.
And you have experience with this firm?
So with Hofer and Hofer, I do not. No. But our understanding is the 3 bidders were all qualified bidders. They've done work in this community in the past, and so we were pleased with having all 3 of them involved.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, the fixed windows would be something to consider, looking at, like you mentioned, the security, but also environmental control. Keeps humidity constant, and it just becomes another factor of maintenance. More wind infiltration, and the operable window is more like a home environment now. We get hung up with that, but with the control systems that be in place, the operable window isn't a necessity. So
I love being able to open my windows on nice days, but we
Yeah.
don't have that many really nice days
Yeah.
in Kansas, unfortunately. What about the visual, though? I mean, does it look inappropriate that it doesn't match the original windows at all if it's not double hung?
No,
Openable.
that shouldn't be an issue at all. We've been able to have the commercial window manufacturers come up with what looks as if it's a double hung window,
Gotcha.
because you'd still keep the horizontal mullion at the same location that a double hung window would have.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know, thank you. So you gentlemen would prefer the fixed windows, say
Yeah,
for
I-
27.5?
Yes,
I
I
would.
think so, yeah. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, the benefit of an operable window isn't that great in a commercial
Right.
setting. It,
I still like having it. It makes me feel like I can control a little bit
Yeah.
more of my environment, but I totally agree with you. It
It
doesn't make any
does.
sense energy-wise or.
yeah.
Okay, so, anything else? We're good? Vance, thank you.
Well, how do you feel about the operable window then versus fixed?
I'm okay with it, with fixed.
Because it would change the amount of the contract to $1,077,900, if I'm correct.
That's correct, yes.
So,
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good with the fixed windows. Yep.
ready for a motion?
Yeah, let's have a motion. Okay.
I move to award the base bid plus add alternates 1, 2, 3, and 5, and deduct alternate number 7 to Hofer and Hofer Construction in the amount of $1,077,900 for 1916 City Hall renovation Phase 1.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item E, consider bids received for 1916 City Hall asbestos abatement.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
My name is Victor Greenberg. I'm with Intertech PSI. My colleague Tim Rupert and myself are here to discuss with you the environmental portion of the abatement project at the Historic Independence City Hall. First item being selection of abatement subcontract work, which we received several bids. Our recommendations are aligning with the two lowest bidders, both of which we have had working relationships with in the past, and are comfortable with either selection. That being said, there are some discrepancies between the two bids. Aside from the two identified fees, one has a projected working project duration of 11 days, and the other a projected duration of 30 days. And that would coincide with our abatement oversight procedures, area air monitoring, visual clearance, and overall project management.
Victor, I was very confused on this whole part. So if they say 30 days, does that mean they're going to be done in 30 days, or they're going to be in the building working for 30 days?
That's 30 working days, and that is an estimate.
But that means we pay you for 30 days also to be in there and do the oversight.
Correct.
So your fee goes up tremendously.
Correct.
If we go with Gherkin over Advanced.
Correct. And our proposal is based on a daily oversight rate. So like you said, it does have a big weigh on that cost.
Yeah. Wow.
That being said, with the nature of these projects, it is possible. The way that this is laid out, it kind of gives you a minimum and a maximum. So depending on the nature of the work and how quickly it goes, it could be less than 30 days, but that's the subcontractor's projected duration. And
So the 11 could be 30 and the 30 could be 11?
not likely that it goes higher, more likely that they're out of there more quickly than anticipated.
So the 11 days is not guaranteed at all, though?
It should be as the subcontractor's estimate. They shouldn't go over 11 for their baseline fee, if that's what they've given us. And if so, that should obviously be clearly communicated up front.
So with the abatement, we've got vinyl floor tile as part of the abatement. There was no friable, like asbestos insulation, was there?
No, the only criteria would be talking about the vinyl floor tile. And then we did have ceiling texturing as well, I
Okay.
believe, in the, if my memory serves, in the garage facility within the
Now that
City
one
Hall.
bay, the
Correct.
Far East Bay.
Correct.
And then you had, there's abatement of some roofing flashings.
Correct. And it's possible that, and this would have to be confirmed with the subcontractors, but it's possible that they're thinking of a second mobilization, roofing versus interior, which could play into the 30-day estimated project duration. However, it's likely in our understanding that you could perform abatement of both the exterior and interior areas in one project duration, in one mobilization. That would obviously just have to be coordinated between ourselves, the subcontractors, and prior to any actual demolition work.
But with the roofing, the actual contractor will remove the asbestos-containing material, correct? Okay. With that being done, which is flashings around the perimeter, then the roof is left open for rain. So the abatement contractor comes in, cuts out the flashings, and now we start getting water in the building.
The asbestos-containing flashing can generally be removed without actually penetrating the roofing materials. We would have to coordinate with the subcontractor to understand what their temporary patching or essentially systems put in place so you don't have leaking during that process.
Did you
And then
Did
obviously.
you test to see the depth? Was it just the upper felts? Usually they'll mop the felts up the wall, then they'll flash down.
Yeah.
So did you test the depth to see how deep the
We did.
felts went?
We actually performed two analyses on the roofing layers themselves, which, if my memory serves, came back negative. The only actual asbestos-containing material was the additional flashing on the upper layers of the roofing and on the parapet walls. So it's actually not the felt layers of the roofing itself
Okay.
that are going to be abated.
So when they abate the flashing membrane with the asbestos, they're going to peel it off the roof membrane. They're not just going to come and cut and take that whole portion of the roof that extended up the wall.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's where, looking at 11 days,
To coordinate the
try and-
roofers to come in.
Yeah, that's, it seemed awful short, because time correlates to manpower. The more men you have, the more work you can get done. So it is conceivable that 11-day period could work if you have the size of crew
Oh,
to
absolutely.
do that. But if you come in with 2 men, I can see it taking 30 days too. So that was what understanding how this works. Can you explain the necessity to have daily monitoring of the contractor if the contractor is also required to perform to standards?
Yes. So our daily monitoring is following the ASTM standard. It's E1368-14. In combination with the EPA NESHAP standard, which is 40 CFR Part 61. Essentially what we'd be doing is following state of Kansas and federal regulations for oversight, having a certified individual on site to make sure that encapsulation and containment methods are being used appropriately. And then most importantly, the visual inspection afterwards to provide clearance for that space to be reoccupied, as well as, and you mentioned the contractor safety themselves, they're focused more along the lines of the OSHA standards for personal exposure limits, but we're there to verify that as well. So we kind of act as the city's eyes and ears to make sure that abatement is being conducted safely and responsibly.
So part of your daily monitoring, you're going to look for receipts where the product is disposed of, because the floor tile is non-friable, so it can go to where? Construction landfill?
Yeah, we're there to facilitate proper abatement, removal, containment, and then disposal as well, as you mentioned.
And do you have, as you're monitoring, the contractor turn in tickets for disposal to you for review?
We can coordinate that, certainly, yes.
Okay.
Generally, depending on if it's a regulated material or not, they will have receipts for what that material transfer looks like and where it's going.
Did the mastic contain asbestos fiber in it too?
We did have asbestos-containing mastic, floor tile in various areas throughout the facility, and then I believe mastic on the lower levels. Again, I'd have to review our original reporting, which was almost 2 years ago now.
So with the daily monitoring, with the mastic being removed, which will have to be used with a solvent, I assume, that you'll monitor the disposal of that liquid?
Correct. Overseen by the subcontractor, monitored by us. That's correct.
Okay. So it doesn't go down a drain? Or
No, absolutely not. That's what we're there following the ASTM standard for, to make sure that it's not in the air and any waste is contained and removed appropriately.
Okay. Okay, we kind of
touched on I believe
this.
D.
As we're looking at the bids, this is kind of unique that we should consider the contract for inspection or
Oversight.
oversight services because it
Right.
11 to 30 days of
Yeah,
that
it's very
daily
affected.
monitoring.
Yeah, very affected by the contract with the subcontractor
Mm-hmm.
to do the work.
So the low isn't necessarily the lowest overall to the city.
Right.
So,
That's
you know,
correct.
at first glance, you can save 6,000, but looking at the combination, it's kind of unique in that sense.
What is your daily oversight site rate?
Our daily oversight, I believe, is 1,100, 1,140, if my memory serves. That's our daily rate. So calculated on the base of 30 working days for the first Gherkin subcontractor, that totals $60,750. And for the 11 working days, that actually comes down to $45,403.
45,345?
45,403.
Okay. That's 11 days.
It should be mentioned also pertaining to contractor availability, especially if we're talking about timelines and a roofing contractor. We have spoken to both firms. Essentially for Gherkin Environmental, which is the lower base bid for abatement, they will be less responsive late May through early June, or excuse me, late May through June. So depending on timelines, they may be less able to be on site timely. And then as far as Advanced Environmental, their availability is clear after June 8th.
Well, when you look at schedule with execution of the contract and bonds, insurance certificate, we could be, what, 30 days advance?
There was one other issue that, of course, we wanted to make sure we highlighted at the last conversation. In order for the city to be able to receive the historic preservation tax credits, we do need SHPO approval prior to the start of any work, and abatement work is an allowable expense. So what that will do is that's going to push it more similar to what he's talking about of almost into June. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, just with the contract, not, I had forgot about what you're talking about, but looking at contract, shop drawings, and all that, we're getting into June pretty easy.
Yeah, and with Hofer and Hofer, we talked to them similar to what we talked with the commission about. We would issue a notice to proceed for the pre-construction services so that they could get their shop drawings for the new replacement windows, because that's a long lead time item. So it allows them to do that work, but construction wouldn't, the notice to proceed for construction wouldn't be issued until after the SHPO letter.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is kind of a rarity to look at taking the second bid, but when you look at the total cost to the city, at this point, it would be advantageous for us to really consider the second bid over the low bid, in the end, saving substantially. And it doesn't look like the schedule would be an issue, and and the way you explained the abatement of the asbestos-containing flashing membranes, that the 11-day cycle, it's not going to be an issue of double mobilization because of contractor scheduling either.
Right. Yeah, generally the goal for the subcontractor would be to complete the abatement work without having the double mobilization, which obviously an 11-day turnaround lends to more easily. But it can't, things vary based on how the project goes along. And generally, the asbestos-containing materials that were identified within the facility are accessible. There won't have to be any additional demolition prior to the abatement process, which is helpful.
Where we've got two contracts, two separate entities on one construction project, and Vance, that was included in the instructions to the bidders of the plans, that the general contractor will be responsible for coordinating the asbestos abatement. So the two are dovetailed together, that they're not going to act independent from each other.
That's correct. And we, in our conversation with Hofer and Hofer, they acknowledged that and they agreed to that as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So the timeline of 11 days that's indicated here is very, very obtainable.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And it should be noted that if that timeline is less than 11 days, that, our rate is a daily oversight rate as well. So that can change.
So,
But yeah, that's a generous estimate.
11 days, okay.
Okay, then I guess this kind of ties in as we're going next to is there
next item.
liquidated damages in the contract for the abatement contractor should he not complete his work within the time frame?
I do believe so. I would have to double check on that within the subcontractor's bids.
We can see what we're doing is we're making our decision based upon the total picture. And if we make our decision based on 11-day completion schedule, but now the contractor comes in and goes over 10 days, now we can quickly lose our savings.
Yeah.
And that we should have that compensated by the contractor for any work that he fails to perform within that time, then he's liable for the extra cost to the city.
Yep.
Because I'd hate to see a lowball completion schedule and then end up that we have 15 days over and now we've exceeded our savings.
And we can certainly coordinate with the abatement subcontractors. Vance, do you remember if their bids specified that liquidation phase?
So I can tell you with the general contractor bids, we did have liquidated damages of $1,000 per day, but I don't know whether that carried through to the bidders of the abatement work.
PSI did the specifications of the bid documents, and they'll do the contract for the asbestos.
Yes.
So any dealings with liquidated damages or additional expenses caused to the owner is going to come to PSI, not to Trainer HL. So I guess it depends how it's worded, whether liquidated damages or if the contract or bid documents specified additional costs to the owner for inspections, that the owner is reimbursed for that cost. But
Yes, we would need to review that specific section in the bids. But yeah, I believe that is contracted in our general conditions and with the subcontractors as well, with the abatement contractors.
Okay.
Anything else?
Let's do it.
You good?
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All
So
right.
I believe we've actually covered kind of both of our portions from, I guess, sections E and F.
Yeah, but Tim hasn't even spoken at all, so, you know, whatever.
He's the face.
Gotcha.
He's the face.
He's the eye candy. I got it. Okay.
Well, then if, what, did you want to, do we want to do a motion on this and then discuss F? Or do you want to continue discussing their contract now and then back up? Mayor?
Why don't we go to F and then back up?
Okay. Because it follows along the same lines that
Yes,
we're
absolutely.
entering into an agreement with you that's specifying daily monitoring services. So we need to watch that when we make an agreement, if this is a not to exceed figure, or if how we'll address if it goes beyond that, because, you know, we're like you said, the 30 to 11 days, you know, we don't want to have it drag out, and then now we're spending more money or thinking that your phase 3 is a maximum, and then even go 15, 16, 20,000 more, because that was actually a per day charge that you've quoted. So as we look at your proposal then for phase 3, is your phase 3 figure a maximum not to exceed?
Our maximum projected fee based on the contractor's project duration should be set at that project duration. I'm not sure that we have the not to exceed language written in to the proposal itself.
Well, say it took 12 days. Would we be billed for an additional $1,140?
I believe the answer would be yes.
The way it's written is right now, yes. But if they have the liquidated damages, we would be probably not charging y'all, but charging the contractor for extending past the rate.
Which I do believe is written into the bids themselves. I don't actually have one in front of me here, but certainly something we can pull up pretty quickly as
Okay.
well.
I think this is something we need clarified so that we don't get into a misunderstanding that we assume that's the maximum and then find out that we get billed for 2 days and that's the way it was intended. You know,
Yeah, so we need some clarification on that.
Mm-hmm. We can definitely do that. We can pull up the subcontractor bids as well and assess how that language is written,
Okay,
just to confirm that.
sure. Okay, that would be great.
so how do the commissioners feel on, with the two, if they're both kind of tied together, do you feel comfortable moving on the contract for abatement, or should we hold on both for a clarification for the next meeting?
It says in their proposal pretty clearly, $1,140 per shift. I don't
And
I don't see that as a problem.
like I said, the projected duration is, very attainable as far as the materials that are present at the facility and what the abatement's going to take. Like I said, we do have a working relationship with both of these subcontractors, and they're never over schedule, I guess, is how I would put it. If anything, they'll be done faster than anticipated.
So you're comfortable that if they say 11 days, they'll be done in 11 days?
I'm comfortable saying that, yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Days or less, yeah, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
11 days or maybe less.
Or less,
They were
yes,
looking at
correct.
11 as being the maximum.
Likely less, actually.
And then
Okay.
you did state something about if there was an additional day or two, the liquidated damages that cost would be borne by the contractor?
Correct.
So it wouldn't be borne by the city?
No,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Gentlemen, what do you think?
Let's do it.
Good.
Good? All right, then let's have a motion.
You want to do F first? Did I approve the
Oh,
Or
I'm
E.
sorry.
asbestos one first?
E.
E, yeah,
E
let's go
first?
E.
Yeah.
Yeah, we seem to be, got a little clarification and have a better feel for E, so let's do that. Okay,
I move to award the bid for the 1916 City Hall asbestos abatement to AET&A, is that good enough?
Correct. Yep.
In the amount of $31,263.
A second.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries.
You want to do the next one?
Advanced.
I did notice that Phase 2 was already done before we got the proposal. That was part of your bidding process, right?
Partially, the phases do blend together as far as the
Yeah.
project goes along.
Okay.
But yes, part of Phase 2 has been addressed to this point.
So with the note in the budget impact that Phase 2 range from 17,640 to 39,300. Did that encompass?
I believe that's Phase 2 and 3. Oh, no, sorry, that's Phase 3. So that range from 14,140 to 35,800 is for the abatement oversight phase.
Okay.
Phase 3?
Correct.
Depending on 11 days versus 30.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Phase 2 is fixed.
Mr. Mayor, you ready for another
Yeah,
motion?
yeah.
I move to approve the proposals
Yes.
from Professional Service Industries for Phase 2 and Phase 3, 1916 City Hall asbestos services.
Second the motion.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could we
sir.
possibly do a
5-minute?
5-minute stretch break? My legs are asleep.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. 5 minute?
Thank you.
All right.
Was I that hard to talk to?
All right. The meeting is back in session. And next on the agenda is item G. Consider revised proposal for architectural services from Trainer HL for 1916 City Hall renovation and new public safety facility, Phase 2. Vance?
So, when Andy Pitts and I were here last time, we worked with you at the special work session to try to describe the steps that need to be taken in order to move Phase 2 forward. And so what Andy and Ian and I have prepared for you is a breakdown of the architectural and engineering fees. And we've purposely broken it apart so that you have an opportunity to make sure you understand what you're seeing and what it's based on. So the first component of the extension to our contract covers the reprogramming and conceptual design, where we'll work with the city to review the program documents that were prepared previously to make sure that the size and spatial quantities for the project are either reconfirmed or revised. And then as part of that first step is also to develop the conceptual plans to understand what might fit in Historic City Hall. And then at the same time, we would then determine what would need to go in the public safety facility, either across the street or the potential addition to the current fire station. So that's what line item number 1 includes. And that's an important first step for us because we need to understand what the scope of work is. We then talked to the commission about what you needed next, and the question was, could we provide a fee proposal that addressed not just early design, but all the way through construction and administration. So that's why we've broken this apart. So we've given you a fixed fee for the Phase 2 design of the Historic City Hall. And it's an easier fee to be able to calculate because the building is fixed. We know the size of it. We just don't know who's going to go in it. And so that fee provides the architectural and engineering services from schematic design through the end of construction. You'll notice then when we talk about the new public safety facility, the language is a little bit more loose because we don't know how large that facility might be, and we also certainly don't know what the potential cost of that facility is. And in Trainer HL's initial study, we had estimated or projected that the architectural engineering fees might be 8.5. And so that's how we've calculated for the potential new building, that it is an estimated fee based on 8.5%. And this number represents the larger dollar amount that we talked about last time. So in a way, this would be the maximum. It potentially could come down if the cost of that new facility is reduced. And that was about the only way we could project for you what the fees on the new construction portion might be, whether it's an addition to the existing where your fire station is, or whether it's across the street from City Hall in a new building. We also then included separately additional services. We included the fee for preparing the Part 2 and Part 3 for the tax credit application for the interior work. And that is something that we certainly do recommend. That was a scope that was added to our Phase 1 work to help you with. And so we wanted to make sure that was available for you as well. You'll then see that we talked about furniture. Many clients ask us to be involved in the selection of furniture and even assisting with the procurement of furniture. And so we broke it apart again per City Hall and per the potential new public safety facility, not knowing exactly what that's going to be. Then our engineers have one potential add, which is the design for all of your IT components. Many clients either have staff that handle that or a vendor that handles the design of that. And so we had asked our engineer to pull that out separately so that you could pick and choose on whether that was something that you needed or wanted. And then we broke it apart, separating City Hall from the new public facility. And again, we did that because the new public facility, again, we don't have a firm fixed scope on that work. So that's what you see in front of you, is a breakdown of costs and fees. I know it may be a little bit confusing, and I know you may have some questions, and I'm certainly here to be able to try to clarify what you have in front of you. And I might say that obviously we already have a contract with the city. Any of these scopes can be added to that current contract through amendment, so that you can either choose portions of what you have in front of you or the entire thing. And just because you don't choose something today doesn't mean that the contract can't be amended at a later date to include a certain scope.
So like your additional services can be added, the furniture designs or the cabling at a later date?
Yes, what I would say about the IT cabling design, it is best when our engineers begin their work to know whether that is a scope that you would like them to do. But I would certainly say anything with the furniture, you can add that later if you need that assistance from us, from our interiors team. So it doesn't have to be added today. I think if you move forward with, for example, if you move forward with Historic City Hall, that if you need the assistance with the IT cabling, that you include that as part of our scope, so we can put that in the initial amendment.
For the IT cabling, that's for preparing the documents that would show the box outlets or any cable tray, cable supports.
Correct.
Rack installation, specialties.
Yeah, for all the low voltage work that you have within the building.
So it would handle any empty conduit boxes or anything like that through the space too.
Correct.
So with that, if we went with that additional service, then if we have an IT on-call type person, that they could work with the engineer and get all that prepared into the bid documents. So we have one package.
That's correct.
That's going to address everything.
That's correct, yes.
And is that with the electrical engineer? So then any surge protection or balancing situations would come
through that.
Okay. In the initial design. The new public safety facility and design, so your proposal here is just based on the new structure. We had discussed some about addition of living quarters, administrative quarters at the existing temporary apparatus bay. So we're really looking at the most extreme case. So in order to get a more accurate picture, if we just did that portion, we would need to revise.
That is correct. In our letter to the city, we clearly noted that, because if the scope of the work is the addition, it's a much smaller scope, and therefore the fees need to reflect that. If it's a brand new construction across the street, it's a larger scope, and that's what this represents, is the maximum, the high. And our suggestion was, if you would like to approve everything today, then after the programming, we would come back to you with a contract revision to reflect what the fees for whatever comes out of the reprogramming work recommends. That was the most difficult scope for us to provide a full fee proposal on, because that scope just isn't set.
Right. Okay.
We need to talk about funding.
I was going to say, it says here the proposed fees will be funded from the blank, and are
And that's the old RCA. We currently we wouldn't have enough funds to pay for a commitment of 1.1 million if you were looking to pay out of cash. Even half of that we couldn't, and we would be drawing from other sources that we would necessarily would not like to draw from, but, you know, if we had to come up with, say, the City Hall portion, we could do that. As you know, the Phase 1, the 1 point, whatever the contract was for the construction, was all coming out of the sales tax.
Right.
And that eats up all that sales tax for this year, except for maybe $150,000. So making a commitment here, that's our concern, is we don't have a funding source over, even if this was phased, City Hall first, and this other building second, we're not building up sales tax. We already committed that basically for Phase 1. So we've had a couple of thoughts. My first thought was to do a short-term borrowing for the Phase 1 construction, that $1.1 million. Then you would have the cash available to do for the architectural services for Phase 2 design. The short-term borrowing could then be, you can do that for up to 4 years, but hopefully you wouldn't go that long. And you could roll that short-term borrowing into a bond when the time came to do that, to pay for the actual construction of Phase 2, which that amount you would necessarily have to bond. But you could do short-term borrowing, and you can, after 1 year, you can roll that into anything, or pay it off with cash. At the end of 2 years, you could pay it off with cash, roll it into a bond. However you wanted to do that. But that's our concern, of course, now is the fees may not be 1.1 million based on actual, you know, when it's actual, the scope is done. But I don't see it going down, you know, by half. So that's the options we're looking at. Or right now you just say, let's just commit to the City Hall portion, the $344,000. Again, the high figure, the outside cost.
I don't think, can a city borrow money, short-term, like you're talking about a loan? I don't
Yeah,
think,
short-term loan, yeah.
I don't think cities can.
Yeah, you can. I checked with Gilmore and Bell, so.
Okay, because that's.
Well, I checked with Greg Varenberg from Piper Jaffray,
Yeah.
who's not there, who checked with Gilmore and Bell. That was my second call. But yeah, you can do those short-term notes, like say up to 4 years, and roll that into a bond if you want. Or you can pay it off after 4 years with cash if you have built it up. But he sent me there's 2 statutes in state law that allow that. So-
Interesting, because at the finance courses that the league puts, they always say you can't borrow money. You have to have a bond because it has to be secured with ad valorem property tax.
That was my question, is can you do a short-term borrowing without having a voted on bond?
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
that's why I called to make sure. I wanted to be sure of that I can. Because I knew if we wouldn't obviously have a vote for any kind of a bond until either the next election or of course, for the City Hall, the commission can, as you know, can authorize the borrowing the bond without going to a public vote. My understanding is that, not the public safety part, the new construction, but
Right.
that's my understanding.
Right. The new construction would require a vote by the public to determine if that's what they wanted to do. So.
With the questions about the next phase is public safety facility, I think that could be looked at totally separate. The way I see our costs going and our other commitments in the city and revenue, to do a total new facility seems pretty much a strain for the future generations to absorb, that we're going to have to look at as cheap or low-cost solutions as we can find. We've got so much, we're all aware of our infrastructure, our streets, our water, sewer. There's so many needs that we have. To commit to a $12 or $13 million project is going to be way beyond where I think the taxpayers are able to see. So,
Yeah, and of course, I mean, we're not committing, we don't know what that's going to be, obviously, and that's another discussion, of course. But moving forward, I guess that's a question. If we were to take both of them, but that's the outside cost, we're still kind of committed, or we need to have a funding source up to that amount. That's the way we look, because it could be that high.
And if we look at proceeding with the 1916 City Hall design and the contract administration, we could begin the programming and conceptual design, but look at the fee is going to be spread out over quite a period of time. We're probably not going to get into construction drawings by the end of the year, conceivably. And, so the first payments on actual construction design could be into 2020, and definitely contract administration be that far out. So that would make it easier to look at the funding source for that cost. And then give us time to look more in depth of construction financing in the next phase.
Yes, I mean, what you're saying basically as well is we'll stretch it out and we'll start using cash from the sales tax of 2020. But as you noted, we have a lot of other needs, and this is using up all that cash from that sales tax for this year. And then if we start eating into next year as well.
And we still haven't looked at if the sale of Building D providing source of funding, and also then, once we can get out of that building, then we've got the $430,000, not all of it, because some is going to transfer to operational expenses.
That's true if and when, but we don't know if and when. If that building is, how marketable it is, and we've heard for 2 years now, I've heard there was a group interested, but I've contacted them, they've never come back. But yeah, we haven't actively marketed, obviously, put it on the market. But it's an if and when. So right now, the way we look at it is, we need to see how we can have a secure funding source in the event we need to pay for that. That's why I looked at the short-term borrowing for the construction part, which could then be rolled into the bond for when you did the phase 2 construction, because you would have to borrow that amount.
So if we look at a phase 2, it could be down to, let's see, our commitment on fees would be what, $349,808.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be right.
And that'd let us go forward with looking at the 1916 City Hall building.
Right. Well, again, we could draw enough funds from other sources, not the sales tax again, because we've already committed that $0.25 through this year, but from other sources. I can't list them for you right now, but that would be able to cover that.
Yeah, because some of the design and construction phase of the 1916 project can come from even ADA money.
Right. There'd be a little bit there, not much. I mean, we talked about it with Vance and Ian about that, and there wasn't.
I think that most of the funding would come from there's a historical tax credit fund that still has a remaining balance from years past that we could use, as well as some of the project reserve fund. So we could cover the $344,000 currently, but I think an important question to ask is what that means for the total project cost of even just the historic City Hall design. It's a fixed fee, but it's based off of approximately 8% of the total estimated cost. So should we scale back that project? Is the cost going to go down?
That's a good question. Can I?
Yeah, yes, please.
No, it's not a.
Yeah, when we estimated the fees for the new construction, we did estimate it based on a percentage of construction costs. When we looked at the Historic City Hall, because it's a fixed size of a building renovation, it's a known entity, so we looked at time that it would take to complete the project. And so we described it as fixed fee, which is approximately 8%. So we were trying to relate it back to our report that said you might have fees of 8.5 for the entire project. So
the historic portion, you're saying, is you're estimating that we're going to spend $4.3 million just on historic City Hall?
The dollar amount, when you have a fixed building like that, the dollar amount in construction of going up and down does not necessarily equate to reduction of fee, because it's a fixed known footprint. The size is set. With the new construction, that's where all of a sudden it could grow or change because it's not defined right now. We tried to tie it back to a percentage because our original report described that fees might be at 8.5, so they come in actually lower on the historic building.
So you just showed the basis how you developed your fixed fee for it. Yep. Yeah. State of Kansas pays 10.5 on a remodeling. Right. So, you know, you look at the 8% isn't out of line with what we'd be looking at, because your work is going to be greater on a renovation than new construction.
So we're looking at least from what I can gather right now, we're specifically looking at the historic City Hall design at that price, and we do have money available to pay for roughly a few dollars short of $350,000. So then, where are we going to with the new public safety facility?
The easiest would be to go ahead, and we're not bound with just two phases. Do phase 2 would be the renovation of 1916 City Hall, then come back and look at a revised scope and readdress the public safety facility design, and then, you know, if we could have Piper Jeffrey prepare like they did before, come in, talk about the financing, look at the construction cost financing, and tie it all together.
Okay.
And then by then, we'll know about the historic tax credit for 1916 building. And also, And do you know if, at one time, we hadn't filed for historic tax credits on a portion of City Hall, or not City Hall, Memorial Hall work? Did we file for all those?
I believe we did. I don't know if it was all of them, but I know that this one is for Memorial Hall.
I thought we had
Approximately
two different
165.
projects of getting money at one time, and I never heard whether we got the second bond sold for our second series of credits.
I'd have to check on that. I don't know. I don't know.
So, going back to something we have to consider and have some, at least projected some type of timeline on what we're going to look at. But as far as Building D, getting to a point where some kind of timeline, well, that will go on an open market and for marketability and see what.
It could go anytime.
Anytime.
Until you have an offer and a contract, it's still ours.
Right.
And you don't have to accept offers. So, you know, the thing is, we can go ahead and explore the market and see what the interest is.
Okay.
At the same time, we shouldn't wait till the end because it's not going to be sold next week.
No, that's right. It may take a considerable amount of time
Maybe
before.
3.
You want to put some money on that?
So you're proposing we list it with a Realtor, basically?
Yes.
Well, let's see what interest we get. Let's see what the value, what they estimate the value of the facility is, and see if we get any interest anywhere close to that or something less than that, because it may take a considerable length of time before this happens. And I know with the interest of the previous entity that was looking at the building, you know, they were going to make allowances and work with the city if that had transpired, and work as far as, you know, being able to stay in the building for an extended period of time. They'd be willing to work with that, and I'm hoping that maybe if this, you know, we get something of a comparable decision from whoever it is that might be interested in this, be able to work with the city to where we can.
That would be key because,
yes,
you know, say we stroke a luck and, you know, we put it on the market and 6 months later somebody wants to buy it, but they want it now.
Yeah.
Or
They don't buy it.
Yeah, because we can't move twice.
No.
We're there until
No.
the 1916 City Hall is
Yeah.
completed.
But it's possible an investor would be willing to buy it and keep us as tenants.
And wait, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what would be key,
Yeah.
obviously.
Okay.
Depending on the use, because it's going to take time for them to draw up plans if they
Sure.
can't use it as is. But you know, I think to keep things going forward, I think we tonight could look at the programming conceptual design and the historic city hall design and construction administration. If we could go ahead and at least move forward on that, we'd
Okay.
keep getting down the road, and then it just allows us to go forward and then look at the financing for the bigger picture
Okay.
and get things worked out in that realm. So,
Okay.
and then so we can come back and, well, the historic tax credit application, we know we're going to want to do that.
Yeah.
And discussion of the IT, maybe we could add that later on, but the 3 things, programming design, historic city hall design and contract administration, and the tax credit. I think those 3 items or something.
Okay.
And you, Vance, you mentioned the possibility of modifying, like with an amendment, we could just go with the existing contract and.
That's correct. We could put whatever you select tonight and approve, we could do as an amendment to the current contract.
Okay.
So those three total up to $358,808, if my Catholic school math paid off. It's questionable.
Don't blame it on the school if you added wrong.
Hey. Well, obviously leave yourself a way out. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that sounds reasonable to me.
Ready?
So yeah, let's move on that. All right?
Well, I make a motion that we authorize an amendment to the current contract with Trainer HL for programming and conceptual design of $5,000. Historic City Hall design and contract administration amount of $344,808, and additional services, Historic City Hall Part 2 and 3, tax credit application for $9,000, for a total amount of $358,808.
All right. Do I have a second? Second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries 2-1. Okay, what we talked about, the marketability of the current Building D. What, how do we want to proceed on that?
Well, we'll bring that up at the next
At the next meeting?
since we got a long agenda.
Okay. Next meeting, we'll consider that. All right, let's move on here. H, consider an ordinance amending the definition of the fire limits of the City of Independence. Yes, Sean?
Good evening.
Yes.
So for many years, we've had a map hanging on the wall of the fire department, and it's outlined the fire limits. Well, recently, looking through the ordinances, what we've been going by is actually the historic district. So the actual fire limits district that is in the ordinance encompasses quite a few residences, which would mean a lot of those residences would not be able to shoot off fireworks 4th of July, have pit fires. So it would really, take out a lot of, extra activities for those residences. So we're proposing that we stick with the historic district, which we thought we were going by for many years anyway, and which is mainly the downtown area is what that is. So it would, let residences do, pretty much what they want to do, like other residences.
We're just cleaning this up, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That'll make those in that outlying area happy. Okay, gentlemen?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any other questions either. Sean, thank you. All right. I make a motion that we move to authorize city staff to amend the current fire limits boundaries to match those boundaries set forth in the Historic District Boundaries Ordinance.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item I, consider an ordinance amending City Code Section 46-104 dealing with unlawful discharge of fireworks. Okay.
Hey, Barb.
I'm just coming back now with the ordinance that I brought 2 commission meetings ago.
The only additions are some city rec suggestions of some outlying parks and the ball
Right,
field.
City Rec asked to be included.
Mhm.
And their inclusion is the ball fields, right?
Right, they asked that to be included.
Okay. Okay. Sounds fair enough. Are we good?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Gary, you're good?
I'm good, thank you,
Okay.
sir.
I move to approve signing ordinance number 4294, amending City Code Section 46-104, dealing with unlawful discharge of fireworks. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. J, consider awarding bids received on the following condemned structures. 500 South Walled, number 2, 419 South Second, number 3, 804 West Main, number 4, 1320 West Locust, number 5, 1725 North Penn, and number 6, 520 South Penn. Don?
Yes.
Welcome back.
I'd received a letter from the owner of 725 North Penn. Is that the photograph of it? I think he had visited with you, Don, before a situation developed, and he wants to, he's asking that we remove the property from demolition, that he's not able to work on it at this time due to circumstances, and he says he will renovate, will work with Don on it. He's got a contractor that's willing to help him. He's just asking consideration to give him the opportunity to renovate the property. There's some personal details that he's experiencing that's not allowed him to take care of the renovation at this time. I was able to visit with him personally, in person, not on the phone, Monday, and he did express desire to renovate. He was, sincere. I felt he was definitely committed to do it, and he was really asking us to be considerate and give him the opportunity, that he wouldn't let us down. He would comply with the renovation and willing to work with Don on schedules and everything. So, I would, on his behalf, I would ask that we remove the 725 North Penn from demolition at this time.
I've also got the same letter, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him or visit with him about this. But ironically, I happened to have been looking at a meeting, and he happened to appear before the commission, and it was, let me think here a minute. It was in 2017, early part of 2017, and he had just acquired that property. He said he had obtained ownership. He'd had it for about a week, so it's been in his possession for coming close to 2 years now, if not exceeding 2 years. If you take down the house, then you got an empty spot on North Penn between the houses on either side of that. I'm not real. I'm willing to work with anybody that's willing to work, but as long as they meet the commitments that they're going to do, as long as they stick to a timeline.
Don, have we had a timeline with this person before?
We've had a timeline with him before. Didn't meet the timelines that we had established, that we had talked about, and his circumstances also prevented him from making the timeline. We have received several complaints from the neighbors about living there, the activities that go on there, the concerns for the safety for the activities that go on there.
Somebody's living in that house?
Originally, this was brought to the city's attention because it was full of trash, and there were smells coming out of it. This was before this individual that we're talking about owned the home. So we started the process on this. They bought the house. This person bought the house. Now things were cleaned out on it, but said that they would start working on it. Did some work, a little bit of cleanup work inside. Got rid of the trash, and a little bit of cleanup work. Not really any work structurally, and was living in the house when the fire occurred. So the fire that started in February of 2017. Was condemned in 18. It was condemned because this individual living in the house and it caught on fire. So that's what made us move forward to condemn it and do the clock. I mean, I am very empathetic. I've expressed my personal feelings to this person about it. But like I say, we've received complaints from the people in the neighborhood about the condition of the house and things not moving forward, and they have some concerns other than just the house.
Sure.
He will be being relocated from where he is now about mid-April, and then he'll have the ability to come and start work on it possibly with us.
Did he express to you about finances? I mean, there's more than just this damage. There's electrical damage. There's getting HVAC to the house. There's the floor. It's not safe to walk on the floor in that bedroom right there because of that damage. There's no floor in the bathroom, not having anything to do with the fire damage.
Yeah, he did mention finance. He had his father was willing to help finance him, is what he told me that he.
And there'll be considerable electrical work that will need to be done.
I think he's aware of that.
I just know I've had some very concerned. I've had some very, very concerned neighbors express concern to me.
Sure. Understandably.
And the garage that we see here, that garage is going to fall down. So, I mean, it's your decision. We've tried to work with him for 2 years now, so it's your decision.
He's been unavailable for the last considerable months that he's not been able to work on it.
Let me throw this out there. Let's say we take it off the list and we set up a schedule of repairs and work that he's going to make. He gets his finances and he starts making repairs on it when he's able to, in mid-April or a time frame that gives that. But if he fails to keep up with the timeline, then we come back here and we put that. What process do we have to go through?
Just bid it again.
We just bid it again. Okay, that was my question. I wasn't sure what we had to do.
You could either bid it again, or you could first you could contact G&G and see if they would honor their price.
Their price.
If they do, you're set. If not, you bid it again.
Okay. I would go on a leap of faith here. I'd venture to do that if he's willing to discuss that, one, he has the money, he has the financing available, he can start giving us a timeline as far as when these repairs are going to be made, and then he keeps to the schedule. If he can't keep to the schedule, then it comes back and we either honor the bid, G&G honors the bid, and we remove the house, or he follows the timeline, and the house is rehabbed and it becomes a viable piece of property, and it's back on the limits again. And the only reason I say that is because, like I said, I watched that meeting of 2017, and he had come in and he had just bought it, and he was the owner for a week. So you're looking at 2 years have passed, and I understand the circumstances. But if he's got the money, he's willing to do that, has help to do that, and he confirms the timeline of repairs and is willing to follow that, I'd be willing to to move in that direction myself. That's my opinion. So,
I didn't get the letter, so
okay.
I'm good with,
Yeah.
I'm good with getting rid of all 6 of them, but if you gentlemen feel strongly about it, that's fine.
Well, it's a short leash. We're gonna put him on.
What timeframe do you propose that we give him to show progress?
Time frame for him to complete it, or time frame?
Well, I mean,
For a schedule of
I'm
work.
taking
We need to
direction
work
from you on
hard.
this.
Yeah, I think once he's available to come, that's when he'll be able to discuss that with you.
So do we want to bring this back in 60 days, 30 days, 90 days, and not bring it back?
Not that fast, I wouldn't say.
I think 90. 90.
90 days. Okay. So that's what, June 6th, 7th? 27th? Okay. So that's agreeable, Gary?
Sure. Yeah.
And Leonard, that's agreeable with me too. Okay, so first things first, do this 90-day procedure first and then come back to the bids and pull that bid?
No.
Or
Go ahead.
and
We need
award
to
the
go
bids?
ahead and award the contract for demolition. We can go ahead and award Charles Billing, and then we can award G&G Dozer for the houses except 725 North Penn. I think that's $8,000 for theirs. And then
That's 7,200.
725 North Penn separate.
Okay, so,
2 houses to G&G for 8,000.
yep. Okay, the motion is to move to award the demolition bid for 2 houses to G&G Dozier for $8,000.
Right.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then to award the demolition bid for 3 houses to Charles Billman for $11,000.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Don.
So we need to set the date for the 27th of June.
Yeah, just
It's-
a review,
it's-
we'll put it on there for a review.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll just bring it back.
Okay, all right. Like I said, I'm kind of learning the ropes here. Okay, we're looking at K, consider an ordinance repealing certain city code provisions having to do with abatement of public nuisances and setting forth new terms and conditions.
Mr.
Dave,
Mayor,
yes.
this is our ordinance that code enforcement uses, and we've worked with the city attorney to clean this up a little bit. Currently, under the ordinance, we send certified letters, which are like $6.50 a letter. We send over 1,000 letters a year dealing with different things. So we worked with Jeff. We cleaned up the ordinance. Now we can personal serve. We can post on the door. We can send regular mail. We're also sending it to both the owner of the property and to the residents. So considerable savings there. We've also went in and before, especially like on grass, the clerk's office would send one billing, and if they did paid, they paid. They didn't, they didn't, and it then would be put on the property taxes. We worked with Jeff to change that. We now can bill. We can turn it over to collections. We can put it on the Kansas set-off, which is when you pay your Kansas, or you're getting a Kansas refund of your taxes, they will pay the cities that money back. Or some other.
Cool.
Just different options that the clerk can try to receive some of this funding back. So we're just trying to make it decrease our costs,
Yeah.
be more efficient, get some more money back in.
Because we never get anything back virtually, right?
Correctly, and give the Director of Finance and Clerk more options to collect that money. Did I miss anything, Jeff? I think that pretty much summarizes it.
When there a timeline change on the days they have to comply with?
I think
the-
we
the
left it,
10-day?
it's 10 days when we serve you for grass. You have
Mhm.
10 days to mow before we go back and notice it and turn it over for mowing. The rest of them were pretty much in line with our 15 and 45-day notices, depending on what the violation was when you get into nuisances.
Was the 10-day not a change? I don't remember. Was the 10-day not a
No,
change?
no,
or
it was
that's-
not a change. That's
Okay.
what it's always
I couldn't
been.
remember
Yes.
whether that time frame was longer or whether it'd been 10 days.
No, we left that at 10.
Okay.
I like the idea of making more contact, but the certified mail is kind of our guarantee that somebody has been notified. I like the door hanger to give somebody, I think with our condemnations, you look at what we do there, no one knows until they're called for a public hearing.
I know, I've been doing,
And
I
when
agree.
you
Yeah.
you put the notice on the door, in this case, you're making them aware. Then when you give them a letter, you're reinforcing, but the certified mail is no way to deny that
What they do, Leonard,
But
is
if
they don't accept it.
Yeah.
We get them all back.
That's what we do. When we get certified mail, I just don't sign for
Yeah,
it, so.
they all come back.
Yeah.
They don't accept them.
I would venture a guess, and Dave, you can jump in, but on these condemnations we do, that's by state statute, so we can't control it. It's certified.
Right.
Yeah.
And what percentage of those are never signed for? All we have to do is say we sent it, more than half of them don't ever get it, because they don't sign for it. So that's really.
So we're talking
No
just
notice.
lawns here.
There's a presumption when you mail a first-class letter, if it doesn't come back, that there's a presumption that the person received it.
Okay.
So at least there's that presumption. If you send a certified and they don't sign for it, they're never.
Yeah, okay.
That was my thinking.
I
Plus
never
they-
thought about that.
Well,
Just don't sign for it.
we deal with certified.
Try it
letters.
next time you get one.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
I have found the
I've been
county,
signing
I
all
agree, the county parcel is not very accurate right now. I don't know what's going on, but we've been doing a few, just like the lady that was here today. I've received in the last couple of days 3 calls saying, I sold that property last year. Well, I said, I'm sorry. The county still shows you, and then so I agree, posting, and we're going to post it in the yard and on the door so that they know that there's a violation.
Yeah, I don't know, I just lost the thought. It might come back and it might be
yeah.
next week.
It's been a long
Yeah.
meeting.
Might be never.
Yeah.
And the notice in the door hanger will specify, if the place is a rental, specify that it not only does it notify the renter, but it also specify that this is the owner, this is a notification for the owner also. So they see that.
Yeah.
It's not only them, but the owner needs notification that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, we are sending it to the owner of the property
I
via
remember.
first-class mail.
The posting on the property will only apply to the person that's physically occupying the property.
Oh,
So
okay.
if the owner lives in
Yeah.
Wyoming,
Right.
that's not going to constitute notice to somebody that doesn't live.
Okay.
But the
But
mail,
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
mail will.
so first you're going to notify the one that's causing the mess. Then you notify the one that's got the muscle.
We're going to do a shotgun approach, I think, and notify them all at once.
Yeah, we're doing everybody at one. It goes resident, owner, post on the door.
We just want to get it done.
Yeah.
And have more people to go after if they don't do it, to collect the money.
Okay.
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 One thing in the ordinance, it's got the right to enter. I think we might want to check, because at the last league conference, they talked about some of these, and the right to enter had been ruled. What I understood, that the Supreme Court had ruled that the right to enter is unconstitutional, that to actually enter, you have to have a court order.
To enter a residence, we go to Jeff and we get a search warrant. Or
This is just a yard.
just, yeah, we're
And
just.
this was actually, that's the way the ordinance reads right now. This isn't new.
I know there was, and what brought it up is one of the members of the league staff was a city manager, and he went with the building inspector and was enforcing right to enter to go in and check the property without a warrant, and he got shot.
Wow.
So that's why they backed down and have ruled that if you want to actually enter the property, you have to have a warrant. So that was the last, I think, in October, September at that conference, they were talking about that.
Okay. Okay. Gentlemen, anything else? Good?
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. All right, I make a motion, I move to approve signing the
Or before, are you
sorry.
gonna check on the right to enter?
I think the context you're stating is not what we're talking about here. This is just tall grass. We're
Yeah.
not talking about entering a house. Most yards aren't fenced. If it was fenced, this would.
Okay.
If you got, I think all the code enforcement officer does, has to estimate the height of the grass.
Okay.
I don't really think there's much intrusion on this.
Okay. It's not all inclusive. Yeah.
This just
Okay.
applies to the weeds. And most of the time, that's the drive-by.
Yeah.
I doubt they get out of it.
Drive-by when you're mowing them and abating.
Well, yeah, the abatement is different. You have the right to enter for abatement, but yeah. Now, if an owner stands there with a shotgun, that's when we
I
get the search
wouldn't, I wouldn't
warrant.
know it.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't expect him to. Then we would get a search warrant for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good?
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion that we move to approve signing the ordinance number 4291 and 4292.
A second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.